Recently, we have observed a very positive trend in the fitness community. It's about being inspired by other disciplines and incorporating elements of them into personal training plans. I have been doing this myself for some time and train with the help of kettlebells or gymnastic rings. For years, I've been interested in the silhouettes of gymnasts, which inspired me to start using rings. Athletes like Brandon Wynn and Jake Dalton from the USA, Yuri van Gelder from the Netherlands, Ivan Ivankov from Belarus, Arthur Zanetti from Brazil, and Eleftherios Petrounias from Greece remind me more of today's Instagram fitness models than athletes in a sport that requires so much flexibility and jumping power. And I have only given a few examples of good silhouettes from the world of this sport. However, almost all athletes who do gymnastics at a higher level look at least impressive, and their trademark are phenomenally defined arm muscles. This is not the first time I have analyzed this phenomenon. Let's start with the proportions. It is undoubtedly an advantage for the perception of gymnasts by their fans that they are not tall. Because anyone can do gymnastics, but a small body size initially gives you a certain advantage. Such athletes are also lighter, so they have less gravity to contend with on the rings, bars, or jumps. The best gymnasts in history therefore rarely approach an average body size. Most champions measure around 165 centimeters. The champion of 2000, Alexei Nemov, with a height of 1.74 m, and the Olympic champion of 1996, Li Shaoshuang, looked almost like giants. Nemov's height, by the way, is a rarity among gold medalists, as no champion since the year 2000 has measured more than 164 centimeters. A person of small stature who does strength training looks more muscular. Every additional kilogram of muscle mass fills out a smaller body. For this reason, many top bodybuilders tend to be small. Shorter limbs can give the impression of more compact and concentrated muscles, even if the muscle mass is not significant. They can also have some advantages when it comes to achieving good mechanical leverage in certain exercises. To give an example from our field, in squats, a shorter range of motion for a smaller person may mean that they require less energy to perform the same exercise compared to a larger person. This can give an advantage in training and help to build more muscle mass. Heavy gymnastic figures such as the reverse muscle up, the Maltese press, or the butterfly are also proportionally easier to perform for people of the right stature. Gymnastics is very much a strength sport. Not only can you find footage of gymnasts training with weights, mostly arms by the way, but it's also the nature of the sport itself. Gymnasts perform a series of heavy moves that are not feasible for the average creatine consumer. And even though there is no bar to hang more discs on, each new figure can be an advanced form of the previous one, so the possibilities for progression in gymnastics seem almost endless. And thanks to the favorable use of leverage with smaller gymnasts, progress can be made over a long period of time. Even though a good gymnast's body is the result of working on their own functionality, this very work provides a certain hypertrophic stimulus. After all, progress is necessary for muscle development at every level. Another common denominator between bodybuilding and gymnastics is the high training volume. Gymnasts train in the form of circuit training, similar to some bodybuilding or CrossFit programs. There are up to 15 exercises in a circuit with breaks that are shorter than is usual in bodybuilding. However, different speeds and repetition ranges are used. Each part is trained several times during the week, although this cannot be precisely defined for such complex movements. Olympic silver medalist Lewis Smith, for example, is known for completing huge amounts of training, with his routine taking the form of training 6 times a week for 5 to 6 hours per session. This also leads to long periods of time under tension, another well-known parameter of strength training often associated with the hypertrophic response. When discussing gymnasts' arms, the importance of exercises with extended arms is often emphasized. This is because the training of these athletes combines many types of muscle work. There is the concentric and eccentric work we are familiar with, as well as isometric work, which is very rarely practiced in gyms. Many are of the opinion that only a combination of different types of muscle work leads to the best results. In some gymnastic figures and exercises, the arm flexors are very heavily overloaded during the isometric contraction. This leads to an increase in muscle density and improved strength parameters, and then allows for higher intensity in other workouts with concentric-eccentric work. This applies to both the biceps and the triceps, which are trained no less intensively by gymnasts. One example of a figure that places a lot of strain on the biceps is iron cross. It is by far one of the best known exercises in gymnastics and almost impossible for most of us to perform. When learning this exercise, gymnasts use a series of progressions. To some extent, almost all of us can imitate the elements contained in it, but we have to adapt them to our own abilities. The easiest way is to attach a resistance band to the bar and then pull it downwards with your arms straight, pulling your shoulders slightly forwards. You should then hold the band at the moment when you feel the greatest tension, for example for 30 seconds. Dips on rings also put a lot of strain on the biceps due to the starting position. The so-called support hold on the gymnastic rings can be a separate isometric exercise to improve the stability and strength of the upper body. In this position, the arms are locked at the elbows in a supinated position, which means that the wrists are rotated outwards. The optimal rotation of the wrists is around 45 degrees, and from a gymnastics point of view, it makes no sense to rotate the rings any further. We adopt the hollow body position. We can also perform different types of forward stretches, for example with dumbbells in a lying position, with the top of the hand pointing downwards and held at the point where the greatest tension is felt. A step above this would be stretches on rings hanging low enough. A completely isometric exercise that I can recommend here would be the Maltese plank. It can be performed on the rings, although this is not necessary and the floor is fine. Position yourself as you would for a push-up and rotate your wrists outwards. Your position should be similar to a support hold on the rings. Fix your arms at the elbows as if you were fixing them to gymnastic rings. Tense the shoulder blades and round them. Push your upper body slightly forwards. Keep your glutes tight. Raise your pelvis, pull your glutes together, and support the weight of your lower body on your toes or a raised surface. Your hands should be close to your pelvis and your arms should be at an angle to your body. Then bend forwards as far as your strength allows with your arms straight. The triceps, on the other hand, can be strengthened in a special way with Indian push-ups. This exercise involves concentric and eccentric work, but in a rather unusual way. This is because at some point you have to shift the weight of your body, which is currently resting on your triceps. You can also perform heavy isometric exercises on dip bars. Once you are in the support position, switch to the hollow body position. Now stretch your legs forwards and bend your body backwards. The more you can tilt it backwards, the more tension is transferred to your triceps. A slightly simpler variation is the reverse plank with outstretched arms. Although this may seem too easy at first glance, it can be a real challenge to perform this exercise in several series after a solid push training program. The advantage is that the technique is not complicated. In a seated position, support your body on your hands and feet, bringing your legs together and pushing your pelvis outwards. It is important to keep your arms straight at all times so that you feel the muscle tension in your triceps the most. If you're one of the few who do isometric and gymnastics-like exercises every day, I'd be grateful if you could share the details with me in the comments. That was Steel Shock. See you in the next episode.